Hey everyone. So far we have containerized backend apps like Flask and Express. But in real-world enterprise applications, we often use structured frameworks like NestJS. In this video, we will see how we can containerize our NestJS application using Podman. In this video, we will create a NestJS application, build it for production, write a Dockerfile, build and run this application using Podman. So let's get started in containerizing our NestJS application. First, let me open my Visual Studio Code. I'll click on Open and I'll open my work directory. Now, I have already created a next application called as NestDocker, which I have pushed into my GitHub. So you can use it to build and containerize our NestJS application. So let's proceed with our approaches. Now, let me give you a walkthrough on this NestJS project. So I'll just zoom in. Now, NestJS has a folder structure like this. Here we have source folder, which has all the source code. Then we have test folder where we define the test cases. Then we have prettier, which is a formatting config. And then we have linters, the NestCLI, package.json, the readme of NestJS, TS config, etc. I'll move into source. Here we can see something called as controller. So NestJS works on model control view architecture. Now, what is this model control view? Model is a component where we'll define all the business logic of our database. Then we have controllers. Controllers are the one who will control what are the data that are supposed to be inserted into the database and what data has to be retrieved from the database based on the request. Views are nothing but the way we are showcasing our data to the real world. Now, here we have something called as main.ts, which is an entry point for our application. Then here we are seeing that our application is waiting at port 000, meaning it's a default port. Then we have app services where we define our injectables and our export classes. Here we are having something called as get hello. Now, what is this function? So get hello is a function definition and return is the function body. Then we have app module. So inside this, we have something called as a decorator. So at object name is called as decorators. And inside that, we are importing user module. And inside that, we are importing our controllers. Now, what are these modules? Modules are nothing but services, meaning we have one service that is user, where inside that we have defined our model, where user model will dependent on user controller and works on user service and exports user service. Now we'll see what is this user controller. As I told, controller is nothing but a component that will control what is the data that has to be sent to the views and what are the data that has to be written into our database. So here we are seeing different methods and functions. Now at get, meaning whenever I have a get request, we need to call these functions and we need to do it. Meaning get accepts a parameter called as URLs or URL patterns. If it is empty, that means it is a empty parameter, that is for home slash. It will call find all and it will return this data. Whenever I have slash stats, it will call get stash and it will return the respective data. Similarly, we are having for post request, then we are having for put request, then for delete request. Now, if I come to service, here I can see what are the things that I can insert into my databases. Now here I'll define a private class as users with initial data. Then I'll define some functions where it will return data from my storage into the controllers, more like a model. So this is all. So in controllers, we are having just healthy functions where it will return at slash. Then in app module, we are having all these modules. Now, let's start by creating our Docker file. So before we create a Docker file, I want to give an idea on interfaces. Now, what are these interfaces? Interfaces are nothing but a blueprint of the objects. Here I will say what are the fields that a user class can take. More like an interface we are having in TypeScript. Then in DTO, what is DTO? Data transfer objects. Here we will define what is the type of the field that we will be transferring to. So for class create DTO, that is create user data transfer object, name is of type string, email is of type string, age is of type number. And for update DTO, name is of type string, email is of type string, and age is of type number with optional field. Then, so these DTOs are used inside our services, that is under user service. Now, let's create a Docker file. I'll come into my Nest Docker. Inside that, I'll create the Docker file. I'll hit enter. And what is the first step in Dockerfile? We'll define or we'll import our base image, that is base runtime environment. So here I'll be using from node of version 1020, I'll be calling the Alpine. And here I'll be using as development. Now here I'm introducing you guys into something called as multi-stage build, meaning we are having multiple stages in building our image. Previously we have seen just one stage, meaning build and use that build into our production. But what is the drawback of this? Whenever we have a single stage build, our unwanted files or unwanted dependencies will be there inside our image. And also the image size will be large. So to optimize the image size and reduce the size of the image, we'll be using multi-stage build, which is much more faster, efficient, and cleaner. So this is how I'll define my multi-stage build. So from node 20 Alpine as development, I'll set my work directory as /app. Then I'll copy my package star.json into my destination, that is /app. Then I will run npm CI. So once I install my dependencies, then I'll copy the source code from my directory inside the container. Then I will run npm run build. So this will build my application. Then I'll write npm from node. Here I'll take it as 22 from Alpine as production. So here I'm defining another stage called as production. In the first stage, development, I'm just building my application. But in the second stage, I'll use this build of my application into building my image. So I'll create this and then I'll set the env, the environment variable, as node env, which is equal to production. Then I'll set the work directory as /app. Then I'll copy the package.json into star. Then I will run npm CI only production. Then I'll copy with a flag called as from, where we'll say from what stage we need to copy. Ours is development. In that, I'll just copy app slash dist into my directory called as .dist. I'll do one modification here. Here, I'll execute another command that is npm cache clean force, meaning I'll clean my cache in my production. Then I'll run add group and I'll pass flag -g and I'll give it to the and I'll give the group ID as 1001 and I'll mention it as a system group with the name NestJS, and I'll go to a new line and I'll add user with tag yes and I'll name it as NestJS with tag u with 101 with group NestJS. Then I will run John, that is change ownership. Then I'll give read-only access to this user belonging to this group into my /app directory inside my container. Then I'll switch the user into NestJS. After this, I'll expose my port at 3000. Then I'll run a health check with interval 30 seconds, timeout 30 seconds, start period as 5 seconds, and retries as 3. Here, timeout, I'll make it as 10. Then here, let me give the CMD in the next line. Now, here I'll be using node env environment. Then I'll use the library require http dot get http colon / localhost / 3000 / API / health. So this is my endpoint to check the health in my application. Then I'll define an arrow function with parameter result, and inside my function body I'll define process dot exit if my response dot status code is exactly equal to 200, then 0, else 1. Then I'll give a space. Yeah. Then after this, I will give my main executable command, that is node dist main. Instead of .js, I just mention it as main. Now, this is an example for how we can set up a multi-stage build inside my Dockerfile. Then I need to create a file called as docker-ignore. Hit enter. Here I'll ignore the node modules. Then dist file coverage *log git ignore with .swp, then swo buck temp. Then I'll ignore the Dockerfile docker ignore git ignore and the readme file. Now I'll open my terminal. I will run Podman PS. Now I will move into my folder that is Nest Docker, and then to build I'll use Podman build. Then I'll tag it with Nest app and I'll specify where is my Docker file using doc because my Docker file is present in this directory. I'll hit enter. Let's wait for our image to be built. Yes, first it is pulling from node 20. It has built. Then it is going for step 2 as production, where this is the data or the ID from the first build. Now here if you have observed, the build has taken much more faster time compared to the previous steps. Now the image is built successfully with the tag localhost / next app latest. Now I'll clear. Now to run the image, I'll use podman run and I'll run it in detached mode and I'll use the port 3000 3000 and I'll use the image Nest app which we built just now and I'll hit enter. Now it should return the container ID. Meanwhile, I'll open my Podman. So yes, here you can see a container is running successfully. Now, if I go to my browser, if I open localhost, cannot get /status code 3000. Then let me go for /aps/user. Yes, here you can see the data. Now I'll use this /API. Here you can see message NestJS running in Docker successfully. Now let us use curl commands to perform CRUD operations on these users. So I'll come back to my VS Code and inside my terminal I'll be running my curl commands, or else you can open separate terminal and you can run. I'll just open another terminal. So I'll just zoom a bit and inside this I'll run my curl commands, that is creating requests on my container. Let me use this curl command. What does this command do? This command will send a get request to the URL localhost 3000/API and it will give in a JSON response. Let me hit enter. Here you can see the response. Now this response is same as the one which we get here. So both are same. Now let me hit another curl command. This will again run a get request into this endpoint and it will return in our JSON format. So it is healthy NestJS app. Now I'll just copy this URL, come to my browser, paste it here. So it's giving me the same response. So in the browser, we can just perform get operation. Now let's try to get all our users. API/users. So here you can see success true, ID1, etc. Now if I come back to my browser and if I run users, we'll get the same. Now we'll run some curl commands to create, update and delete users in our database. Here our database is just a simple JSON body. Now I'll just clear my terminal and I'll paste this URL. So here it is sending a post request to the endpoint API/users with content type application:JSON. And here we are sending the JSON body with name Elias Johnson, with email elias@email.com and age as 30. Let me hit enter. Failed to connect localhost 3005 because we send it to a request to our wrong port. So instead of 3005, we should send it to the port 3000. I'll hit enter. Here you can see success and data. Now, if I come to my browser, if I refresh the user, I should see 3 users instead of 2. The alias JSON, which we sent just now. So our post request is working. Let me try again with, so here, okay, by mistakenly give backslash. Here it should be 3000, and here I'll give pipe and j and q. Here instead of 30, I'll give it as 33. Here instead of Alice, I'll give it as Alex. Here I give the name as Alex. Let's hit enter. So here we can see our speed, the time taken, and our data in our JSON body. If I come here, if I try to refresh, so 4 users. Now let's try to get the stats of the users. So total users is 4, average age is 29.5, oldest user is 33, and youngest is 25. If I come to the browser, if I check, we have 30, 25, 30, and 33. So the maximum age is 33 here, and the lowest age we are having is 25. Now I'll update the existing user 3. Now our user 3 is Alice Johnson, and update his data from Alice Johnson to Alice Cooper. And I'll hit, before that I'll give a pipe JQ so we can see it in a beautiful JSON body. Okay, failed to connect 3005. Again, we are using the wrong port. Yes, it's successful. What we are doing, we are sending a put method. Put method is only used when we are trying to update a single field. If you see here, we just updated the name. Rest we kept as it is. But if I want to update a group of fields, at that time I'll be using patch. So I'll clear this and let us try to update multiple fields of a user. Is used whenever I need to update multiple fields, and patch method is used whenever I need to update a specific field. If you see in the previous example, I used put method to update 3 fields, but now I'm using patch method to update just an age. So that is the difference between put and patch. Then I'll prepend it with JQ and hit enter. So it says that cannot patch 3 not found. Now whether we have user 3, yes, we are having user 3, but why it is showing API 3 is not found. Let me hit it again. Okay. Okay, we'll do one thing. We'll see our container logs. Okay, here we have mapped get put. Okay, the issue was we never defined a patch endpoint. We just defined put. So the reason why we got this error patch not found is because we have not defined that endpoint. So we have defined only put endpoint. But if I have implemented patch, then I'll be using this approach. Next, we'll try to delete an existing user. Now here I'm passing a method called as delete, and here our endpoint should be 3000, and here we are specifying the ID. Let me hit enter. Here, if I come to my browser, if I try to refresh, I shouldn't find user 3. I'm having 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now let me do the same for 4. Let me hit enter. Yes, if I come and refresh here, it is showing 1 and 2. This is how we can implement delete endpoint in Nest. So guys, this is how we can containerize our enterprise grade backend framework, that is NestJS, using Podman. In the next video, we will see the important concepts of Podman or containerization, that is networking and volumes. So before we go forward with databases and implementing these databases, we need to understand these two aspects of containers, that is networks and volumes. We'll see that theoretically in the next video. If you find this video useful, please like and subscribe and keep learning. Stay tuned until the next video.